Hanse. I'm Kristin Achkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiled his first cabinet on Tuesday as all were sworn in by Governor General Mary Simon at Ottawa's Rideau Hall. It is a two-tiered cabinet of 28 ministers and 10 secretaries of state. 2 Indigenous MPs have been appointed to cabinet and another as a Secretary of State, and all 3 are newly elected within the Liberal government. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
The new cabinet contains a number of new faces. This includes Northern Quebec MP Mandy Galmasti, who takes over at Indigenous Services Canada. Galmasti is the former head of the Grand Council of the Crees and the first Indigenous person to oversee ISC. Northern Manitoba MP Rebecca Chartrand has been appointed to Northern Affairs. Chartrand identifies as Anishinaabe, Innu, Dakota, and Métis. Northern Saskatchewan MP Buckley Boulanger, who is Métis, is the Secretary of State for Rural Development. In a press conference at Rideau Hall after announcing the new cabinet, Carney said his team will govern for all, regardless of who Canadians cast a ballot for in the recent election.
So whether you voted for this government or not, we are in your service, in the service of building a stronger, more united Canada. We will build and we will govern for all Canadians. Build big, build bold, build now.
In another press conference on Parliament Hill, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said the new Prime Minister may be trying to project an image of change, but his cabinet contains many faces who served with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, including new Justice Minister Sean Fraser.
Sean Fraser was the immigration minister who caused the immigration crisis, the housing minister who gave us the housing crisis, and now he's the minister responsible for addressing the Liberal crime crisis. It seems like he is the master at failing upward.
Northwest Territories MP Rebecca Alty is the new Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. Her predecessor, Gary Anasandagri, moves from that portfolio to public safety, and Patty Haidu goes from ISC to Jobs and Families. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
The Yukon RCMP is appealing to the public for information in a historical investigation surrounding the death of a Kaska woman. 26-year-old Tutsi Jimmy Charlie was last seen on March 20th in 1967. She was 5'5" and weighed 120 pounds. Jimmy Charlie was last seen wearing a green sweater, black pants, and rubber boots. Her body was found 2 months later on May 17th at the White Horse landfill. At the time, the landfill was located off of Range Road overlooking McIntyre Creek. A red and black plaid jacket and pale purple sweater were located near where she was found. The RCMP apologized to Jimmy Charlie's family in 2022 for not conducting a thorough investigation into her death. Anyone with information about this incident can contact the Yukon RCMP's Historical Case Unit at 867-667-5555. To Winnipeg now, where members of the Indigenous community gathered to draw attention to missing and murdered Indigenous women and boys on Tuesday. They are calling on Indigenous leaders and government alike to get a nationally recognized day dedicated to men and boys. Here's APTN's TR Wheatley with more.
With the Warriors Call and song echoing, over 100 people walked through downtown Winnipeg, carrying signs with pictures of men and boys gone missing or murdered.
The support, you can feel that love, the support, the unity, the solidarity today.
Corrine Chief organized the event meant to recognize how men and boys are also taken by violence at alarming rates. In 2021, she lost her brother, Felix Bernard Chief.
I call him Bernard, but his life was taken at the age of 28 years old here in Winnipeg on Burroughs and Aikens by our own people, unfortunately.
According to Statistics Canada, Indigenous men and boys are 7 times more likely to be murdered than any other race, and at a rate 3 times higher than Indigenous women and girls. Many at the hands of other Indigenous men, like Corrine's brother was. She says more needs to be done to deal with the intergenerational trauma Indigenous families are facing.
The band-aiding, the child welfare system, poverty, because why would our men and our boys viciously do this to somebody else? And I've seen that, going through this process with my brother for the past 4 years, is that something happened to these individuals, why they acted out so viciously. And I know I want to come to, forgiveness and to understand them too and to talk with them.
Something this family also agrees with. In 2024, they lost 2 men to violence. 34-year-old Preston Menard was killed in a double homicide in Dauphin, Manitoba last June. The month before, on May 14, 23-year-old Leo Caribou Jr. was murdered in Winnipeg. Rachel Woolen is Leo's aunt.
I watch my sisters, I watch my nieces and nephews still going through this, and many, many other families every day.
So far in 2025 in Winnipeg, there have been 13 homicides. Of the 13, 8 are First Nations men.
The most homicides in Manitoba, 8 men are from First Nations. So it really needs to be talked about. A lot of work has to be done. I mean, I've heard announcements about, so much funds for our women. But in order to be a whole family and be united, we need to also put some money into our men.
A conversation that Chief and many others here want to start.
My brother was tragically taken, but is turning things around to outlet in a good, healthy way and to bring this awareness and to call out our leadership.
With a goal to get government on board to push to make May 13 a nationally recognized day for Indigenous men and boys. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Premier Wab Kinew of Manitoba says the hunters involved in a recent slaughter of more than a dozen caribou carrying unborn calves have no right to hunt in the province and will be pursued and held accountable. The RCMP and Manitoba conservation officers are investigating the incident that happened in the Newellton Provincial Park near the border with Nunavut. The owner of 2 hunting lodges in the park was checking his property from the air in mid-April. He was able to see several people who had broken into his lodges. More than a dozen caribou carcasses could also be seen, most of them females who were still carrying calves. The lodge owner says this is a significant waste of food, and whoever broke into his property used furniture for firewood. According to the Manitoba Wildlife Federation, these caribou were most likely part of the Kaminyuriak herd. This herd has declined from almost 500,000 in 1994 to just 253,000 in 2022.
Resource it is. It's a shared resource with all Manitobans, and there's some hard discussions that need to take place. We need leadership, so we need government to be leaders, we need community leaders, we need licensed hunters, we need to all be at the table, large and outfitters. Everybody's going to be at the table, and we have to all recognize that this cannot continue to happen if we want to have caribou, moose, and other wildlife that we all cherish. So we just got to do better as a society.
In a statement to APTN News, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew said, "I have spoken to people directly who live in this part of the province and who live off the land, so let me say this unequivocally. Anybody who participated in this has no respect for animals, has no right to be able to hunt in this province, and will be pursued and held accountable to the fullest extent of the law." The RCMP is investigating the break and enter of the cabins. Manitoba conservation officers are also looking for the hunters who did this. The MWF says at this time they are unsure where the hunters are from, but they believe they traveled by snowmobile and say the nearest settlement to the lodges is about 120 kilometers away. Local residents of the municipality of Dresden in Ontario and the Walpole Island First Nation gathered in Ontario's Queen's Park this week to protest against a dump in Dresden. CTV Windsor's Travis Fortnum reports.
The fight to keep a controversial landfill project from moving forward near Dresden was back at Queen's Park Tuesday with a group from the area pressing their case in person.
Our community of Dresden and surrounding areas is absolutely outraged and betrayed by the Ford governments.
Representatives from activist coalition Dresden Cared and Walpole Island First Nation opposing plans to revive and massively expand a decades-old tile yard and ash dump they say is too close to town, farmland, and the federally protected Sydenham River. They thought their concerns were quelled during last year's Lambton-Kent-Middlesex by-election when the PC government promised a full environmental assessment of the project, but that could soon be scrapped under Bill 5, the Unleashing Our Economy Act.
Things have changed.
Premier Doug Ford says the province can't keep relying on the U.S. to take its trash.
40% of all the garbage goes down to the U.S. It takes one phone call from President Trump to say, cut us off, and then what do?
Let's be clear. This bill undermines environmental protections.
Chief Leila Thomas says Walpole Island First Nation has not been consulted despite the site being on traditional territory.
It actively excludes First Nations from oversight and decision-making process that affect our lands, our waters, and our livelihoods. It's a violation of our constitutional rights.
Oh my goodness. Are you talking about the Dresden landfill? Look, give me a break here. This government will always promise anything and everything during an election, and then they turn around and break their promise.
Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles says the PCs broke a promise to the people of Dresden, but she isn't sure a Liberal request for an integrity commissioner investigation into donations linked to the company behind the project will go anywhere.
I don't even know who these guys are, to be honest with you. I don't look at who owns it, who doesn't. What I look at is the capacity issue that we're facing.
Those fighting the project say the Premier's denial doesn't cut it.
If the Premier thinks that ignorance is a defense, no, he's the wrong person to be leading our province.
Travis Fortnum, CTV News.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, you can go to www.aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. We have more stories after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. An under-15 female hockey team from Nain, Labrador recently traveled to Montreal to meet their hockey heroes and watch a professional women's hockey league playoff game between the Montreal Victor and the Ottawa Charge. APTN's Angel Moore has that story.
I think since we walked in, I've had the smile on my face the whole time.
Peyton Vicker is talking about meeting her hockey heroes. They play for the Montreal Victoire of the Professional Women's Hockey League team practice.
I think it's pretty cool that they got this going, because I always used to just watch NHL, so it's just all men playing, but now to be able to see a woman play professionally is pretty cool.
Vicker is a right winger for Team Nain E Mute, an under-15 girls hockey team. She and 8 of her teammates, who are between 11 and 15 years old, traveled from their community, Nain, Labrador, to Montreal for a 6-day excursion. The PWHL hopes it inspires the youth to play professional hockey. Tessa Dicker is 11 years old and is a forward on Team Nain E Mute.
That it's a big city and there's and it's a huge rink. There's millions of chairs that I've never seen before.
Nain is the most northern settlement in Labrador with over 2,000 people and is over 1,400 kilometers from Montreal. Julie Dicker is the youth chaperone and says the travel was worth it.
Well, their faces were in astonishment, like, holy, that's how they go, holy. When they meet the players, they met a few players last night at the restaurant across from the hotel.
Claire DeGeorge is a forward for the Montreal Victoire. She says she did not have many female role models in hockey.
Mostly just watching boys hockey. I'm from Anchorage, Alaska, so we didn't have very many professional women playing. So being out here and being that role model for these girls is something special.
Saroya Tinker is the manager of community engagement at the PWHL.
If we're not being inclusive, we wouldn't have a fan base. So to be able to have that outreach and reach into the community and make sure we have that community engagement is imperative for us moving forward. And we've been able to build it from the ground up, which is the most amazing part. And that involves finding communities such as Nain and bringing them into the game.
The girls were treated to front row seats at the first round of the playoffs against the Ottawa Charge. Vicker says the trip has inspired her to become a professional hockey player.
You really want to, you can do whatever, if you work hard enough and you want something, just go for it, and who knows, you might end up here one day.
Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabuktuk, also known as Halifax.
It's that time of year when we look for new adventures and experiences after hibernating in our homes throughout the long winter. As many folks are choosing to stay on this side of the border during the tariff war initiated by U.S. President Donald Trump, Indigenous-owned tourism businesses are waiting to give you an experience like no other. Our Sav Jonesa brings us this story.
Ashley Smith is getting her Indigenous tourism business ready for the summer. It's an off-grid yet totally glamorous four-season camping destination in Riding Mountain National Park.
We built it to feel like a teepee where you're really low to the ground with lots of windows and lots of cool air, and you hear the sound of nature, but you're safe from the elements as well.
Turtle Village is comprised of 8 year-round micro cabins or turtle shells, along with ice fishing huts for winter, thanks to a crystal clear lake a short walk away.
We did create it with a Murphy bed so that you could lift this up in rainy days, or if you just want to come and hang out.
She says it's going to be a busy year. More and more people are choosing to stay away from the United States amidst President Donald Trump's tariff war on Canada.
We've been going off and discovering the world, but I think we're in an era and a time that we just need to go in our own backyard, and we're going to see how great and beautiful of a country we have.
Over in Winnipeg, we went to the Wyndham Garden Winnipeg Airport Hotel on Long Plain First Nations Urban Reserve to speak with Indigenous Tourism Manitoba CEO Holly Kershane. She says the Indigenous tourism sector is growing rapidly in Manitoba.
We know that travelers, whether they be international travelers or domestic travelers, they're looking for those authentic Indigenous stories and those experiences.
With more than 170 Indigenous tourist experiences to choose from throughout the province, Kershane says supporting them during your staycations also means contributing to reconciliation.
A lot of these businesses and experiences are telling their story about being an Indigenous person, where they come from, the history of, their community and their family. So when you visit these experiences and you hear these stories, you're actually learning about Indigenous people and history.
As for generational connections to the land, Smith says her ancestor was one of the first to create winter lodging in Riding Mountain National Park more than 200 years ago. Now, she's here continuing the legacy with her family of 5.
If you're thinking about doing Indigenous tourism as an Indigenous person, it's actually very suiting to who we are as people, because you can bring your family, you can set your own hours, you can develop it and structure it however you want.
To find more Indigenous tourism businesses to support, check out indigenous-tourism-manitoba.ca. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Great story, Sav. We now want to tell you about this week's second web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, should all universities in Canada provide free tuition for treaty peoples? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. Go to our website at www.aptnnews.ca/polls to have your say. Students at the Piapot First Nation in Saskatchewan are learning about their culture in a unique way. That story when we come back. Stay with us. On the East St. John 7, Halifax sunny and 15. The Grand River 11, Happy Valley Goose Bay 13. Saguenay 9, Quebec City 22. 18 in London, Toronto 19. Sudbury 16, Sioux Lookout 24 and partly cloudy. Norway House 4, The Paw 3. 11 in Gimli, Princess Harbour 8. 7 in Yorkton, Regina 8. Stony Rapids rain in 2, Buffalo Narrows 13. Showers in Peace River at 13, Fort McMurray rain in 19. 17 in Calgary with rain, Red Deer 18 in rain. 15 Tofino in rain, Campbell River 17. 10 in Sandspit Smithers 17. 12 in Whitehorse, Watson Lake 12. 7 in Wati, Norman Wells 2. Sax Harbor -5, Polituck -8. Arviat -1, Whale Cove -4. And -8 in Arctic Bay, Aglulik -10, and sun. Thanks for staying with us. Now to tell you about a school in Saskatchewan. A major part of Chief Piapot School's philosophy is to offer a style of education to develop a student cultural identity. One of the ways the school is achieving this is through the arts program with song and dance, acting and performing. After some presentation, all the grade levels explored what they are learning by giving a special performance to family and friends. CTV's Mick Favel reports.
The horse dance is meant to honor the animal and its importance to the Piapot community. It's one of the forms of expression these students are performing at the nation's 7th annual Arts and Language Festival. The event has been a big project for the Chief Piapot School, creating presentations to show who they are and where they're from.
All of our students, all of our teachers, they incorporate it into everything in their classrooms, whether that's science, social studies, English, arts, of course, and we learn about those things for many months before we actually get to our performance pieces.
This year, the horse was honored alongside the dog. Members of the Piapot community came to the school to share stories about both animals and where they fit into the nation's history. Students then used the information to form new ideas, and with a little help, brought their ideas to life for the stage.
A lot of our teachings here, in terms of theater, in terms of storytelling, we just tell them to have a normal conversation with one another because they're comfortable that way. And when they're on stage, they do the same thing as if they were just walking down the grid road.
The arts are a major part of the curriculum taught at Chief Piapot School. Many cultural teachings and knowledge overlaps in the arts, and teachers at the school find the arts as a key component to exploring Indigenous identity.
Our stories, our histories, our ceremonies, our languages, they are all passed down through our art forms, whether that is our beadwork, whether that's our songs, our dances, they carry those stories. And that's the same thing here. All of these performances, all of the art pieces that are in the school, they tell stories.
The festival has steadily grown over the years. It's now one of the biggest events of the school year. During the 2-day festival, students performed for more than 450 people.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Wednesday. We're back again for your evening newscast with more stories. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho kwana. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Ekse.